Welcome to the Piece of Me podcast. This is your space for all things peace, positivity, and finding balance to live your best life. Life gets busy, and at times it's messy. I'm here to help you clean things up and put peace back in its place. I'll share tips, ideas, interviews, mindset shifts, and fresh perspectives to help you along the way. If you're on a mission to become a better version of yourself, if you're looking to level up, if you're living life on autopilot and looking for that spark to start something big, then this episode is for you. Hi friends, it's Leigh. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're not new, then welcome back. It's been a couple of months since I did a solo session here on the podcast, so I'm happy to sit down and talk with you. Now, before we roll up our sleeves and get into today's episode, do me a quick favor by hitting the follow button on the top of your podcast page to let me know that you're out there. It's an easy way to support the show and to know when new episodes have been released. And there have been a few new followers joining us, so thank you for taking the time to hit that follow button. Now, you can also stay connected with me on Instagram at Piece of Me Podcast and on my website, pieceofmepodcast.com. Now, I'm also excited to share this episode because it's all about you and helping you uncover your triggers, your traumas, and define the passions that you might not have realized are there, just kind of waiting for you to discover. And it's not easy to identify all the things that make us tick or even tick us off. We live in a busy world and we're doing all the things all the time, and we don't often check in with ourselves or have the time to even put in the work. So maybe you only need help from healing from traumas, or maybe you want to reveal that passion that's been secretly stowed away in your brain. Now, either way, I'm so glad you're joining me for this episode. Now, I plan out my podcast episodes in advance, and sometimes I need to interrupt the order of what's going to be published next because I want to share something like I am today. Now, I'm very passionate about what I'm going to get into because it's a technique that's helped me, and I think it just might help you too. Now, I'm sitting here with a hot cup of tea, and I finally have some time to record in a quiet space. I love doing these solo episodes because I feel like it's just a direct way to connect with each of you and really check in. Now, the year is moving along, and we are so close to closing out 2023. We are shifting into another busy season ahead with the holidays, end of year things, and another seasonal shift in weather. Now, if you're listening to this podcast in the United States, we're getting ready for winter. The sun is setting sooner, the days are getting colder, and that said, this is also a perfect time to focus on you. Now, we're approaching a season that puts the focus on everyone else and their needs. So this is a good time to get cozy and spend some time thinking about the areas in your life that need some attention or some TLC or even a little bit of digging to bring it to light. Now, I also think the end of year is a time to reflect and to think about where we want to go and what the next year will bring, or what changes we want in the future and what our goals will be moving forward. Now, 2024, it's right around the corner, and so are those resolutions and intentions. So to create an episode that is all about helping you heal, helping you grow, and helping you reveal what's been there all along, I think it's kind of cool. So we're going to dive into uncovering your triggers, trauma, and passions through a phrase that I call pattern popping. Now, I'll share with you what this phrase means and how to identify your own patterns. But first, let me tell you how powerful this can be. Now, the process for finding your specific pattern popping, it's not hard. In fact, there are a few ways I'll share as to how you can go about this, but what can take a little more work is the revelation of this process. So realizing this information is huge. It can literally be a game changer. Now, I also believe that clarity will set you free. So when you have all the information in front of you, then the picture, it's crystal clear. When you have all the answers that you've been looking for, you're not going to misunderstand or feel like you're stuck because clarity will give you all you've been looking for. With all that information, it's up to you, though, what you do from there. But at least the clarity will lift the fog and help you seeing what's in front of you. So like I said, this is a powerful exercise, and it can help in any part of your life, from career and family to relationships and passions. So let's start talking about what pattern popping is. Now, pattern popping is when certain topics or themes pop up from time to time in your life. These could be things that hold you back or topics that you ruminate on, issues that are still on your mind, the feelings from a trauma that are unhealed. These things consistently pop up here and there over time. Now, when they're repeated, it's a pattern. It's a pattern that pops up. That's why I call it pattern popping. Now, I want to give you the tools to finding what your own individual patterns are, how they're popping up, and why you should be paying attention to them. And there are a few ways to go about doing this, and you can pick one or two that helps you to get the answers and clarity you're looking for. But, the way that I look at this is when something is on your mind or in your heart, it stays there for some time. It just doesn't go away. So we might look the other way so that we don't have to deal with it, but it's still there. Now, we all have talents that maybe we hold back or we don't know what to do with them. We have wounds that we think might be closed up, but maybe our actions or our outbursts are telling us otherwise. Think of it like a car. Even if something is wrong inside the engine, just even a little tick that shouldn't be there, the car will still drive. The windows still work, the radio still turns on, and maybe even the air conditioning is still ice cold. But eventually, that tick in the engine, it gets louder, and it could even affect how the car runs. Now, over time, that tick can turn into a bigger problem, and the engine stops working altogether. So even if other areas of your life are working well, there might still be something internally, under the hood, under the exterior, that needs a little bit of calibrating to run more smoothly. So here are a few ways to uncover this. Now, the first method is to really think. Think about the conversations that you have with your close friends. Now, I say your close friends because we trust our closest circle with what we're thinking and we value their opinions. So this is a really simple place to start. Now, I want you to think back to what you chat about with your friends the most. What is it that you talk about here and there? Another good way to do this is to scroll through your text threads. Scroll way back, even further back than that, and look for things that you bring up. What do you ask their advice on the most? What are the most common topics that you bring up? Now, if you're listening to this right now and you're racking your brain and you're still not sure, ask the friend. Our friends remember and are very in tune with what we're going through and how we're doing. Now, asking a friend what things stand out to them that you've brought up over the last 6 months or year will be a really good place to start. So sit down over a cup of coffee, a glass of wine, and ask them what they've noticed. And here's the really important part here. Be open to what they share. Good or bad, be okay with what they're going to tell you. Now, another way to look at this is to really find the answers in a journal. Now, this is an easy way to really pull out pattern popping because you'll see the common themes repeated throughout the pages of your journal. Now, if you've been a journaler for a while, just scroll back through 6 months ago, 12 months ago if you can, and look for what things are triggering you. Like, what are you working through? What ideas or goals are you constantly brainstorming and wishing to make a reality? Now, some of us don't journal, and that's fine, but some of us keep notes in our phones or our tablets, or we keep notes somewhere else. So look through those things too. You want to find the patterns by looking for topics that are popping up here and there. Now, whether you're chatting with that friend at a coffee shop or in the break room at work or reading through, previous pages of a notebook or a journal, really pay attention. Your triggers, your traumas, and your passions, they're all right there. Now, here's the other part that you have to really stay in tune with. What are you reading? Or what are you hearing from your friends or your closest circle? Is it about an ex? Is there a problem with family? Problems in a relationship? Venting about work and a manager? Or feeling stuck in your job? Or are you feeling like there's no closure with something? You're grieving over a loss or debating going back to school, wanting to start that side hustle or open your own business. This is where you take note of the things that are popping up for you. Now, I also shared that pattern popping really does work for your triggers and traumas. So I use this in my own method is as a journal. So I use my journal to vent or kind of process things that I'm going through. So, and what I find is that what I vent about right now is usually stuff I was venting about 10 months ago or even further back. The triggers are still there, but it's forced me to work on myself because I can't change or control every situation that I'm in. So this whole practice, it's forced me to really dive in and do this self-development work so that these triggers, they're not so consuming. Now, there's a saying in relationships, maybe you've heard this before, but what you fight about in the beginning is the same thing that you usually will fight about in the end. Meaning what bothered you then will likely keep bothering you until you work on it. So that's kind of how I see these triggers and traumas. They're always going to be there until you work on them. Now, as I've said, this episode is really just to help you uncover what's been there all along. Whether good or bad, it's there. It's in the pages of your journal or in the conversations that you've been having with friends over time. It's there. You just need to take a minute and look for what keeps popping up, your own patterns. Now, I did an episode earlier this year called, Do You Need a Life Pivot? And I think that this episode ties in with that one because if you are feeling like you need to tweak a certain area of your life, but you're not sure which ones, kind of the whole pivot, this is a good exercise to help you get going. And if you've been feeling like something is missing, like something's off balance or something needs to change, you might need a life pivot. So uncovering these things can help you with that process because it will bring to light what's been hiding all along. All right, I know that's a lot. You might even have to go back and re-listen to this episode, but it's short and sweet for a reason. It is a lot to listen to, but really, guys, this is to help you move forward in any category of your life. Getting the information, I think, is not the hard part here, as long as you're open to what you're going to find out. It's really uncovering these things and figuring out where you choose to go from there. The triggers and the traumas, they're always going to be there. You just have to want to be open and willing to work through them. Okay, that was deep, I know. But I do hope that this inspires you to prioritize yourself and your future. And I hope that if anything, it will motivate you to do some healing, do some development, or to finally start that thing that you've been putting off. So let your friends share what they see, let the clarity paint a clear picture for you, and read those old journals to uncover what's there so that you can move forward. All right, so grab your favorite drink, roll up your sleeves, and get ready to live your best life. Now, if this episode has helped you or can help someone you know, please send it their way. And if you listen to this episode on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, please share some love by leaving a positive rating and review. All right, my friends, that's it for this one. And as always, I will talk to you in the next episode. Before you go, I need your help. If you're listening to this show on Apple Podcasts, scroll all the way down and give the Piece of Me podcast a positive rating and review. You can also support the podcast by subscribing to this show on Spotify, Apple, Pandora, or wherever you listen. To stay connected, follow the Piece of Me podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and at the website pieceofmepodcast.com.